Hi, New York. It's nice to be here. So, let's get started. As said, I'm Mateusz Jagodziński. I'm principal developer at Synergy Codes, which is a company that developed the workflow builder. Here you have a link to my LinkedIn or my email. So, today's talk is called Plug and Play Design Building Extendable React Applications. In this talk, we'll talk a little bit about feature flags, modularity, use case we had in our product, and how we approach these cases, these problems. I'll show you a quick demo of this plug and play design, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail on what it is, how does it work under the hood, and yeah, what impact this solution has. So, feature flags. Quick question for the audience. You can feel free to raise up your hands. Who has worked on a project which had feature flags? Okay, I see some hands. And how many of you have found, sometimes in a situation when you wondered, where is this feature flag from? Is it like from 3 years ago or somewhere? Okay, I see some hands as well. So, feature flags. Why do we even use them? There are quite useful things. They allow us to do gradual release of features. They provide a way to do A/B testing, and like I'll go in a little bit more detail in a moment. In our case, allow us to prepare like a different versions of the same product for different clients, essentially. But feature flags in general can have some of their problems, so there is more conditional logic in our code, right? That's not that great, those if statements and so on. Like with the question I asked, like with those old feature flags, they can become technical debt if we do not manage them properly, right? So maybe we release a new feature, but forget to remove the old one, the feature flags remains, and well, it becomes a technical debt bloat within our code. And one thing that will also is relevant for our case is that unused features code is typically still shipped in a bundle, right? Because if you have a feature flag conditional that serves one component or another one, well, you still need both of these components within the code. So the question I wanted to ask yourself today is, what if features could be just added or removed just by dropping a folder in and out of your project? So, like if we had alternative to feature flags, but at a build time, where we could say, okay, this folder has one feature, this another, we can pick which one we want to choose. Like, imagine a car configurator where you drop like specific components or features within your code. So what if? Well, typically, if we try to remove a folder from a React application, something probably like on this GIF would happen. And this is because, well, modularity. So definitely this approach would require good modular approach to what we have in the application. Good separation of code, so, well, this folder that we want to remove actually contains all the things related to that feature. And, well, we would generally like to avoid situations where we need to touch 5 different places in the code just to add one thing. So, yeah, modularity. Here I found some definition for it. So, what modularity in general, as another topic from feature flags, is, well, probably good to have, allows us to separate concerns with our applications and encapsulate those specific functionality, basically make our code cleaner, make sure that it's easier to work with. So how to achieve it? Well, there are obviously different ways in which we could do it, but let me jump into a specific case we had, right? So workflow builder, this is a front-end SDK, but it's a white label tool. It is designed to be configurable for different use cases for different clients. And a lot of it can be done by configuration. So like on this screen, you have this palette. You can mostly specify this through the JSON config files and so on, right? That was the idea. But not everything can be specified by configuration. There are maybe ways that you need to render one component or provide different behavior and so on. And with our tool, this was a very common case for us, where we wanted to ship essentially the same tool, but like different versions of it for different clients, right? And feature flags were not really an answer to us because some of our constraints. But now, what I would like to show you is this plug-and-play design that we have quickly in a short demo, and show you how it works, and then I'll dive a little bit deeper into the details. So here I have just a local version of our project running. So yeah, here it is, some diagramming library diagram with a workflow, right? I'll pick one of the features that we have here. We have something called widgets. This allows us to basically display additional data on those nodes. But yeah, so let's say I'll add another widget, enable 1, 2. So as you can see, it appears in several places in the code. We have like this widget picker on the right hand side. At the same time, we're modifying the React components that we have within here. So yeah, the feature, like a typical feature, captures a couple of places within the code. So let me go back to the code, and yeah, here within the structure we have our plugins folder, where the actual logic for the widget features is present. So we have these components that define and etc. I'll talk a little bit more about this code in a second. But what I wanted to show you is that I can do, well, delete that folder. I do need to rerun the code because the hot module reload won't work with it, but in a second, as I just spin up the application, and yeah, it should work. And it did not work. Okay, let me check. No, it's working, it's just reloading. Oh yeah, the demo syndrome, no stress with all the on the audience. Okay, yeah, now it's loaded. It just needed a little bit more time. So as you can see, it's the same diagram, the same thing that I worked on, but well, right now it just doesn't have those features. The data and everything remain the same, but we have the node, and there's no picker here on the right side, and there's no extension here on the node. So going back to the presentation, I'll like to show you how we did it, how we achieved it. I know it's, deleting a folder might not be a big thing, but anyone who worked with React front-end code knows that you cannot simply, remove pieces of codes and, well, just make it typically build and work. So, couple of things with this, as we call it, plug-and-play design. What constraints we had, what we tried to achieve was these couple of things that you can see here. So we needed a way to easy add and remove code, so we can prepare those different builds. What we really wanted is to have removed features not shipped in the code. So basically have this smaller bundle size, but smaller source code in general, not shipping what is not needed. At the same time, we wanted to have full type safety within our TypeScript project. So all of this code would live in one monorepo, and we wanted to have all the references, not having those plugins somewhere else. So to allow us to modify the plugins code together with the application code. So how does it work? I think it's excuse me. So how does it work? There are 3 steps and pieces of code that will show: adapters, plugins, and general build setup around it. So the first thing, adapters. Here's an example of the code. So we have this essentially a wrapper with optional component plugins. So it's like a wrapper that allows us to wrap any React component with additional logic. The first piece that comes here allows us to basically modify props of any component. So we have a plugin that defines function that modifies those props. The next thing that we can do within this adapter is to insert a component before, after, or create a higher order component, another wrapper right around it. Obviously together with those modified props. So this is a way to modify existing logic within the application, right? Now, besides an adapter for the components, we do have an adapter for functions. So basically we can take any function within the code, wrap it with this adapter and allow this, to basically change the input values or maybe output values of that function and return it. So here's just the continuation of that code. So the next thing we need within the application, within the adapter logic, is to expose a function to register these new plugins within the app. And this is just a set that has all those plugins that apply separate components. I will show in a second how this is being used. So to sum it up, adapters, with them we can wrap a component in a function, modify their pros, insert other components. So like in case of those widgets I've shown, there were a couple of pickers, widgets, etc. And we expose a function to allow us to register new plugins. Now, on the plugin itself, on the plugin side, we have, we're basically, first thing is to specify the components that can be wrapped. So here we have this example, properties bar component that gets wrapped with this wrapper. And now the plugins can make use of it. And below is some example of a function. So that's the first step. Plugins live in their own folder. And the idea is that all the logic related to that plugin is within that individual folders, be it components, functions, hooks, styles, everything. And the actual, on the plugin side, the actual piece we are using those register component decorator that we defined earlier by basically telling, okay, for this specific component, here in this example diagram, we modified props by some function, or maybe we modify some, below with this edge properties, we, for example, add additional component after the component. So now the first thing, build setup. All right, so where's the connection between the plugins, right? So we have this import of all the plugins within one place. There's this slint rule that I'll get back into a second, but basically this is the only place the application actually references those plugins code. Now, for this app, we're using Vite to build the config for building the application. And the how we do it, that we actually can remove those plugin files. The idea is we have this replace files plugin that basically allows us to replace with a simple stub, right? So we set it up to the Vite plugin. This is the code. We call it fallback for a missing plugin that basically replaces the code whenever plugin is missing, right? And this allows us to, remove something without, and the application still works, right? The imports are working. This is the stub, pretty basic. And the last thing within the build setup that we found that is very useful for us is a custom slint rule that we provide that basically prevents any piece of the code, of the application code, from importing from the plugin files. So yeah, whenever we try to import something directly from the plugin, it shouldn't allow us because it's an error, right? And this enforces the programmers to basically keep the plugin code within the plugins folder. So yeah, to sum this up, expose the components for use by the plugins, import plugin files. We have this fallback if we delete something, and use slints to enforce this on the developers. Here, like a diagram, I think that maybe visualizes it better, all the relations. So we have these plugins within their own folder. They're making use of the application and components wrapped in adapters. At the same time, we prevent those imports and have this Vite plugin that allows for replacing missing plugins with the code. So let's sum this up. Well, there are some pros of this solution. So features built as plugins are self-contained, right? We have this better encapsulation of our logic. With this build setup and ESLint, we enforce those rules, so there's like less place for an error. You know, typically the React application React itself doesn't force much on the developers but itself, so it's sometimes good to constrain yourself. One thing, unneeded code is not in the final bundle. So if we remove something like a plugin, right, it does not get shipped, does not get built. And at the same time, plugin code can use main code and its types. But of course, there are some not so great things about this solution. Obviously, there's some implementation overhead on the features. Well, when implementing a single feature, it probably would be much easier to just, you know, skip all this plugin stuff, just put in a couple of new components. Don't worry about creating those, using those wrappers, putting all this code in a specific place. The next thing, figuring out what should be the plugin is not an easy thing, right? It's a architectural discussion that you need to figure out, that we had to figure out. Okay, what is the actual core of the application, and where the plugins come, right? This separation is not obvious. And yeah, as we found out with iterating over this solution, right, when we started nesting multiple plugins, it could lead to some problems. So yeah, is it worth it? I would say, I mean, is it worth it to go with such solution, to implement such solution? I would say it depends on the use case, right? For our case, this was quite useful as we ship those different versions to different clients, but hey, maybe feature flags and in general good separation of code is fine enough for your case, right? However, I think that this solution might have one useful application in these times. So with the how ubiquitous the AI coding tools are right now, the code generation tools, we know how they're notorious they are for touching different places they shouldn't touch, right? And having this separation, basically forcing a feature within one folder, can also make it much easier to work with these tools, right? Because you can clearly see, okay, it's trying to put the code something else, right? So those constraints might be, this enforced modularity can be quite useful for these cases. So I would like to know your thoughts. I think there'll be Q&A in a second, and yeah, if you'd like to discuss, you can also visit our booth, Workflow Builder booth, right at the exit of there. When it comes to resources, you can find community version of the Workflow Builder on our GitHub. That's the first link, and the second one of our colleagues prepared like demo of essentially what I've shown. I know that showing up pieces of code here and there might not be the best way to learn, but if you'd like to check it out, you can just visit the GitHub and see how it works by yourself. And yeah, thank you.